Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cute Games Club. I'm Terry Ross, and since a new Pokemon Snap has been announced this year, I put together a mini-series covering photography as a mechanic in games. In this video, we are continuing the story of how Pokemon Snap was made. If you haven't seen the first video, definitely go check it out, but we're gonna pick up right where we left off. And sorry that I lost the footage for this. I recorded it kind of wonky, so it's just gonna be my dulcet tones for this video. But anyway, let's get back into it. So Nintendo just hired Jack's Beanstalk team, a bunch of game industry outsiders, in an unprecedented open call back in 1995, hoping that their unique perspectives would help them develop a great game for the upcoming Nintendo 64 console and Nintendo 64 console's peripheral, the Nintendo 64 DD. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, this team seemed at the beginning like it had everything it needed to put together a great game, but the chairman of the project completely forgot to give them one important thing: organization. Okay, let me tell you something. Planning is in my lifeblood. I got into game design, not because it's fun, not because world building is cool, or not because oh, it's so amazing to see all these people enjoy this thing that I created. No, I got into it because systems are cool, and I like making them. So yeah, I worship at the feet of the spreadsheet gods. I have shed blood at the mantle of Asana. I have touched the shroud of many a Canson quadrille in my day. I know the importance of a properly planned production for games. It's basically the difference between finishing your project on time and finishing your project 3 years later than you expected to. But game dev has changed a lot in 2 decades. The things that we take for granted about working together as a team now definitely weren't always around. In 1995, terms like sprint, milestones, feature creep, stand-up, some of them hadn't even been coined, and the rest of them weren't nearly as ubiquitous as they are today. The way software teams managed their projects differed wildly from team to team, let alone from country to country. So the chairs of the Jack's Beanstalk project, being too busy and important in their own right, just hoped that natural leaders would rise up from the team and steer it in the right direction. But that was way too generous. In fact, it's kind of stupid. The Beans were characterized by being inexperienced in the game industry. Of course, none of them would be willing to step into a director role right out of the bat. And Nintendo, come on. Every ragtag bunch of misfits movie always has a quick-talking smartass with a heart of gold who acts as a figurehead for the group, and a grizzled veteran who doesn't really want to be involved at first but ends up dispensing the practical knowledge, tools, and tough love everyone needs to succeed. Also known as a project leader and a project manager. And did Nintendo give that to our Beans? No. They handed them a couple of computer stations, the equivalent of about $4,000 cash, and a peace sign. Add to that the fact that Nintendo 64 was notoriously hard to program in 3D, and yeah, you got a shit show on your hands. As a result, Jack's Beanstalk participants battled with their work and each other for almost 2 years. I was upset because I couldn't proceed and the atmosphere in the team was heavy. I started to feel more and more depressed. The end was nowhere in sight, and I knew I couldn't do this forever. I just wanted someone to say, it's over. I said to Iwata-san several times, I can't take this team anymore. It had an atmosphere that kept your thoughts secret, so you couldn't say what you wanted to say. It was my first time in Tokyo. I was alone without any acquaintances, so I was not accustomed to the environment, and it was very difficult. It's brutal listening to accounts of each team member who reported feeling hopeless, alone, sometimes even depressed. Meanwhile, Miyamoto is periodically visiting the offices and kind of taking a look at what's going on, and he's not happy with what Jack's Beanstalk has put together. They had at some point in these 2 years decided to make the game about photography, And that is, of course, an innovative idea, but they lacked design sense to make it actually fun or closer to a game. You know, there wasn't any, like, strategy per se. Finally, Miyamoto is playing the prototype one day, and he's just like, well, this is useless. Like, kind of openly confessing to all present, this whole project is a mistake. And it's kind of the final straw for everyone. President of HAL Laboratories, Satoru Iwata, said the team was able to come to Pokemon Snap because of that one comment. But that one comment may have also hurt them. Okay, so I once found myself very early in my career in the fabulous position of being publicly humiliated by someone I considered a mentor. And I can't tell you the damage that experience inflicted on me. It took a long time and some very helpful therapy sessions for me to realize the way that guy treated me was actually totally unprofessional and not a reflection of my worth as a designer. But until that happened, I was walking all around town like, well, shit, my worst fears have become true. Everybody in games, especially indie games, by the way, is nursing a little imposter syndrome on the side. And we're all just waiting for anybody with a shred of credibility to tell us, I don't think you know what you're doing! Like, even if Joe Schmo on Twitter says, like, oh, I don't think your game was very good, it takes an extraordinary amount of personal conviction and courage to keep going instead of chucking your laptop in the ocean and becoming a yoga instructor in the mountains. But what if the guy who was telling you you weren't any good was Shigeru Miyamoto? Donkey Kong creator Shigeru Miyamoto. Super Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto. Star Child of Nintendo Shigeru f***ing Miyamoto. Yeah, I thought of Jack as a bomb. Maybe it's a dud, or maybe it explodes and blows me away with surprise. I thought, worst case scenario, it fails and ruins the team. At the beginning of my research, I thought Miyamoto was putting this team together because he saw the value of outsider perspectives in games, but after hearing his thoughts on Jack's Beanstalk at the lowest point in their development, it was kind of clear that the game was the only thing he really cared about. And normally that's like a really attractive and important aspect of his personality, but now it's probably the only thing I've ever read about Miyamoto, honestly, that seriously bummed me out, man. After Miyamoto became disenchanted with Jack's Beanstalk, he kind of washes his hands of the whole project. He stops visiting the offices. But Satoru put some respect on my name, Iwata, president of HAL Laboratories and absolute MVP, original G of the decade. Love this guy. He refused to give up on the project. He refused to give up on the team. I felt strongly that we shouldn't give up without producing any results. So even when Miyamoto-san told me it's no good, I couldn't just nod obediently. I understood where he was coming from, but I couldn't. What exactly happened to turn the Jack's Beanstalk team around, you may ask? Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but, Pokemon is involved. But to hear the whole story, you're gonna have to stay tuned for part 3 of Pokemon Snap's history. And keep an eye on the channel even later for coverage of some other great photography games that have come out since Snap's release. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later for the finale of the history of Pokemon Snap. Bye-bye.
Hey, who's the goddamn manager here? I am!
Act like it, you big lush.